Today on the show, we're going to talk about NFTs in our video games, boys, and we're going to talk about acquisitions, all centered around the world of Xbox. Let's get into the episode right now. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Xbox, eh? Couple of Canucks here this evening, this day. We got minus one. He's got a box if you're watching this show, but if it's on just the audio version, look. He's in the chat. That's fine. It's good enough, right?
See, I could do it.
Sean Capri. Hi, Court. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. The kiddos are in bed and I'm alone. Not alone. I have your
See, that got awkward
faces.
real quick. Steve, how are you doing?
Hi, Steve. Steve Igvari, everybody. Mobile Syrup.
Hello.
Other things.
I'm back.
You're back.
State.
Yeah. You guys invited me back.
You found the place
it.
Okay? You found the place
I just
okay?
stumbled in. Yeah, exactly.
No,
this is cool. This is cool. I'll get to record with you guys late at night. This is kind of, tell some spooky stories.
Oh, we should. In the lights.
Oh yeah, we don't. And it's dark in your condo.
Oh, it's super dark.
It's super dark.
It is. Well, it's usually all nice and bright, right?
I know.
The light coming in.
Yeah.
We usually record in lunchtime.
Right. No.
Not
today.
It's super dark. Now the ghosts can come in and out.
I don't like your
cool
place.
stuff.
I don't like your
This
place.
is Toronto. You do live in Toronto. There are ghosts. For sure.
At least one or two.
Some trucker ghosts.
Some trucker ghosts.
Careful. Well, before we get off the rails completely, freedom.
Freedoms.
First topic of the show. Let's get right into it. There's this whole thing going on in the internet where it's basically a JPEG, but you can own it and then you could sell it and you can make more money. And a lot of people are excited about it. Others are confused, and the gaming companies feel like this is our way home. This is the new form of DLC and new content we've been waiting for. They're excited, boys. NFTs are here, and are they here to stay? Court, kick it off. Talk to us. What's going on with NFTs? What do you want to talk about?
So I want to first non-fungible token.
There you go.
And I understand it more or less means that this is unique and it can't be replaced with something else. I still think it can be. But for example, a Bitcoin is fungible. Trade one of those in another Bitcoin and you'll have exactly the same thing, a one-of-a-kind trading card. However, a non-fungible, if you traded it for a different card, you'll have something completely different. You gave up Squirtle and got a 1909 260 Honest Wagner, which is Stadium Talk. Well, yeah, I'm reading somebody's jibber jabber here.
What are you reading?
I thought that was a legitimate example you came up with.
I thought it was a Pokemon character.
When I got to Honest Wagner, I was like, well, now we're talking about cards. That's kind of cool. But because I understood that reference. I'm that old.
Okay. Good for you, Dad.
For me, we have a couple companies that have said that they're dipping their toe into them. One is Ubisoft. When the backlash happened of everybody saying that makes no sense, I believe they told us we didn't understand.
Don't get it.
Those kids. And then we've had a couple people dip their toe in, like Troy Baker, that dipped their toe out very quickly and did the I've learned, I've changed my mind, or I don't want to be no longer in this industry. I want to continue making money. And then we had Sega had officially canceled its NFT project. We had Stalker 2. We hardly knew ya. That was less than 24 hours. That was canceled.
That was quick, real quick.
Yeah. December 15th, it came out with it. December 16th, and it got canceled the day later.
Dang.
And then we had Discord had their NFTs canceled.
What are they going to do?
I'm
sorry. Pause right there for a second. The hell is Discord going to produce as an NFT that people would actually want to buy? The logo? Can't do that.
So
there's only one of them.
The first notable NFT integration cancellation in the gaming space involved Discord, which many people use to chat with playing games. On November 8th, 2021, Discord founder and CEO Jason Citron tweeted an image showing the crypto wallet. Honestly, it seems like something out of Tron.
Real cool.
Yeah.
Service MetaMask integration into Discord. And then he put probably nothing, and he put the whole thing. Discord users immediately responded to a post with vitriol, and Citron confirmed that Discord did not have any plans to move forward with the integration just 2 days later. I also want to say that I'm reading out of Digital Trends, an article by Thomas Franzi, just so to give the author credit, because we like to do that kind of thing, unlike some people. So then you also had Team 17, which is the makers of Worms. We're going to do NFTs. They're
That's
not
what
anymore.
I want, Steve. I want Worms NFT.
Can we all?
We need it.
And this one actually surprised me that they pulled out and Ubisoft didn't. EA, of all the the evil villains in the video game world, and they're right up there. And I always love whenever you hear like EA's the number one place to work and everybody else is just like, huh? But EA originally was going to go into the NFT market, and they were like, no, we're not. And then secretly still counting all the money they get from gambling in their games. But yeah, huzzah, we know they definitely do it.
It's additional content, Court.
It is not. Or what do they call it? What do they call it now?
Surprise mechanics.
Surprise mechanics. That's my favorite. That's my favorite on that. As someone that plays NHL 22, yeah, they're not surprise mechanics.
You don't get surprised when you open them? You're like, ah.
No, I do when I don't get anything good. Then I'm surprised this sucks. But I haven't bought any packs in NHL 22, and I've been tempted. I've been very tempted, and I'm like, oh my god, this is gambling. This is definitely gambling.
Oh my god, I'm gambling again.
which to be honest, we're about to have. Microsoft just bought King Games, so Xbox is about to have a gambling mechanic game coming real soon to their platform. But we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to talk about NFTs here. There is a huge environmental impact as well, and that is the reason gamers are up in arms. Let's be honest here, NFTs are here to stay. When people can make money off something, we're going to see a lot of it. But I wanted to get everybody else's opinion here. And Steve, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah.
Your opinion on NFTs and video games. Sorry, my nose is like the itchiest thing in the world right now. Don't know
why. No, it's all good. I've been pretty outspoken on the internet. I don't really see a huge value as of yet. That's the big caveat here. Is I think that at some point, someone will come forward with a plan for NFTs that will actually benefit the player. However, at this current juncture, I think that everyone's just kind of latching onto a buzzword and kind of hoping that they can strike while the coals are hot. Because that's the thing that's going around. You went through how many different publishers, developers that are saying, okay, I want in on the NFTs. Well, what does that mean for you as a company? What are you going to do to provide a service for the player that, seems tangible and seems valuable? Because right now everyone's just saying we're going to go into NFTs. And it's like, cool. What are we doing? Like, I just want someone to come forward with an actual tangible plan of saying, okay, in this game that's coming out, we'll give you this option to do this, and your life will be so much better. Because right now it seems like everyone wants to create a solution for a problem that does not exist.
Well, wasn't Extraction supposed to have NFTs?
No, it was Wildlands. Wildlands was the one. Yeah, Ghost Recon Breakpoint was the one that has the masks and everything. And I think after a week of being on sale, only 600 people bought into them. Very low, I'd say, for a Ubisoft game. So already right there, you can kind of take a temperature check of what the reception of a lot of the people in this climate. And I posted another tweet saying, like, we're seeing this common trend where even you kind of touched on it. These companies are coming out with a tweet saying, hey, we're going to start giving you guys the option of buying our NFTs. And then, 24 hours or whatever, they come back and they're like, never mind. You guys were very vocal, very adamant that we don't do this, and we apologize. And I put out a tweet saying, hey, if you guys are thinking of getting into the NFTs, why not just save yourself the trouble and just draft up that apology tweet right away and publish it right away? Because that way we can all save some time and effort, because it seems like the common trend going forward, a lot of people just don't want NFTs in their space right now, and they're going to keep being vocal about it.
So we'd like to welcome to the show, Sean Capri.
Hi guys. I wish I had a cooler hat. I wish I had a cool hat like Steve.
What are you talking about?
Steve looks
real cool.
Great.
Are you kidding me?
Actually, yeah. Steve lives in Toronto, and you can tell he's
Such
got
a
like
cool guy.
the retro Star Wars shirt, which I already complimented on and I want it.
No,
Sean's
real
literally
cool.
what I could
Really
grab. So I'm clothed is basically the bar I was going for.
I'm wearing PJ pants, so let's I'm pulling a Dan Rather here.
Oh, you look great too.
Yeah,
You guys all look great. Look at this.
We're all pretty good-looking gentlemen, you know. I'm just gonna say it.
I'm kind of rolling down the hill. So I'm getting to the age where things are getting a little looser, rough around the edges, man. Good to see you guys, though. Look at this. Look at us. We should do this more often.
Yeah, seriously,
Maybe.
it's fun. It's fun.
This is neat. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. Apparently, my daughter was supposed to be here about 25 minutes ago, but I'm like, nuts to this. I'm going to jump on a podcast, talk about things that piss people off, apparently.
Well, so speaking of things that piss people off, you are a big fan of Nintendo. And for me, they piss me off because they make me spend money every year. And I'm just like, why do I continue to give them my money? But they recently said that they were going to dip their toes in the NFT market. But as of Friday, I don't know if you knew this, John, they've kind of backtracked on this and said that they were misquoted and said that no. The metaverse is what is attracting our attention, not NFTs, even though they're two different words. So I would like to ask you, what is your opinion on NFTs and Nintendo's convenient backtracking about Animal Crossing NFTs that now they're calling them metaverse? They're just giving them a different name. Surprise mechanic.
I'm trying to figure out this internet thing and the computer bits and the JPEGs and the whatnot. I'm trying to understand how this all works. It does feel a little bit like that there's new technology out there that we're trying to wrap our heads around. And it seems like maybe there's money involved. And I think that's just kind of what is grossing most people out. I actually quite liked listening in on Steve's, what I think is quite a balanced approach to this, that like, it doesn't like, if you show us that there's some sort of value there, then I'm with you, man. I'm kind of open to see what there is here, but right now it's really hard to argue with what the overwhelming and loud opinion on NFTs I think on the internet, which is it seems like you're just trying to like sell us a JPEG in a different way, or maybe it's a different way of doing like horse armor. And what I think about it, to be honest with you, is I think it might be a little bit more detailed than that. I think there's a couple more layers. I think there's more opportunity than that in NFT land. And so I'm not quite like, I don't want to close the book on it just yet, because I feel like that might old man bite me in the butt a little bit later. I don't understand this technology, therefore it's bad. I think there might be something to it. I don't think anybody knows what that is yet. And for that reason, because it's a transaction that is being requested from a seller to a buyer, then that's ultimately what I think is upsetting some people, or maybe confusing. I always get a little bit like twinged whenever I just hear overall outrage. I just have I just like back off. I'm like, look, I don't like injustice. I don't like things that are bad for consumers and all these things. But when it's just like this complete and utter outrage, I just kind of go, can we just check ourselves a little bit? So I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because maybe we can bring some levity to it. I do believe that there's something that I don't know about this just yet that might provide some cool next level thing, but I don't think that's been pitched just yet.
So I think some of the biggest backlash, and the only backlash that I have for NFTs, because I'm all for, scary as emphasis, I'm all for capitalism. If you can figure out a way to make money off it, it is what it is. Like, people need to get over and not get mad about that kind of thing, because if they were the ones making the money, they'd be Scrooge McDucking it all day long. So I think the biggest issue people are having is you see on the internet, you have like in Russia, they literally have warehouses of just hard drives just pumping out crypto, blockchain. They're just and that is, let's be honest, terrible for the environment. If they can figure out a way to make that money without having to do this whole process, then all the power to them. But to say that it's the worst thing in the world and blah blah, like, honestly, it's not going away. Like, I'll say it over and over again. If people can make money off something, they're going to continue to do it. Cryptocurrency ain't going away. Like,
it's going to go away if it doesn't make any money. So if they don't figure out how to do this, then that's one thing. And I'd like it just to be like, and I think I'd just like to see that happen more naturally than the mob mentality typically allows for. Like, there's not really an openness at all. I think people have seen one and they marginalize this, minimize it to one example. Like, this is a JPEG that you're selling to me and you're the owner. I think that is one example of this. But I start to think about this, and I'm not sure. I just need to see, like, what is the gap to video games? But I think about like a concert ticket or a sports ticket. I do feel like that is something that NFTs could be good for.
Right.
There's a lot of forgery and stuff that's real bad, that you buy a ticket from somebody else, something that is a digital asset, you buy it from somebody else, and you don't know if that's a legit thing or not. There's no way to verify that. I think that sucks, and I think that needs a proper solution to it. Are there other ways other than NFTs to create some sort of validity? Probably, but it's not really universal. I also think that there's examples of like contracts that you might engage with in a business world that you can verify is open to everybody, to the entire world in NFT land, that I think that could provide some value. I think that's cool. I also think that there's possibly a way for us to maybe own our digital games as digital assets and actually own them rather than a license to play the game. I think that's kind of interesting and maybe a next level way, and maybe unlock something else that we're not able to achieve given our current kind of situation right now. But I don't see how this really like adds anything to anything else, or something that they could sell us in terms of like DLC, or like I said, the horse armor kind of thing. I don't think that those things translate exactly, because I think to your point, Court, like we kind of have that locked down in a way that satisfies people for the most part. But a reseller market doesn't seem to work in the way that we like right now. So it's just a matter of like, how upset are we that we can't resell our digital assets? And we still have enough physical stuff that if we have a choice, if we want to resell stuff, our choice is physical, and then we can send it back, we can sell it to GameStop or whatever we want to do. But at a certain point, that's going to go away, and we're going to be stuck with buying licenses from Xbox or Nintendo to play the games that they sell us. And I think that at a certain point, that's going to tip over, and people are going to be real upset that we've lost the ability completely to truly own our things. So people are going to be looking for the next version of that. And whether people are like it or not, I think that version is NFTs.
Now, I wanted to shed some light on the environmental aspect. So I got an article here from The Verge. It says, when someone makes or buys or sells an NFT using Ethereum, they're responsible. Ethereum. Thank you, linguist. They're responsible for some of the emissions generated by those miners. What's still up for debate is whether those NFTs are significantly increasing emissions from Ethereum, or they're just taking on the responsibility for emissions that would have been generated by those miners anyways. So that's a big one right there. Like, I just reading that line is, we are automatically saying these NFTs are causing this issue environmentally, when The Verge, who does phenomenal reading, and this article is by, I just want to make sure, it is by Justin Kalma, and I suggest people give it a shot. We'll put the link down below. He is pretty much giving you letting you know that no matter what, this would be happening, because cryptocurrency is so huge that this is happening. I really like the piece what you were talking about, Sean, about the digital. As someone that has gone to the digital world and doesn't buy physical, and Matt and I had a conversation about this where I bought Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I have the physical copy of the disc. There's nothing on that disc.
Right.
Sure.
There's nothing on it. So even though I own the physical copy of that game, if Activision, or soon to be Microsoft, decides that I don't own that game, they just shut the servers down. I no longer have that game anymore. So even owning the physical copy of the game, unless you're buying from Nintendo who has a cartridge, you technically don't own anything.
Right.
Even the people who say, yeah, sorry, Matt, go.
No, just I think that's also part of the problem, and even like what Sean is saying, I'm with you. Where it's, I'm more so curious of where it evolves to in 5 years. Of like, we're not there yet. There's a huge gap of what this can be and what it will evolve into. But on that digital piece too, of like, I think it's got to evolve beyond what we're seeing today, because there is that issue right now of giant companies, Microsoft, grabbing up all these companies and can just shut servers down next week of all these games.
Thank you, Cog.
So, yes, by the way, thank you, Iron Lords Podcast, for the $10 super chat. Saying some all Canadian lords in here. Salute to the Lord Capri, like the pants. My guy, Lord Assemble, and Lord Court. Cool guy, Steve. Cool guest, Steve. And important NFT topic. Thank you so much, ILP. Yeah, I think there's a lot more going on, and I think that when it comes to digitizing it within video games is a very delicate thing because of that, where it's like, you could buy, I started thinking when you guys were talking of like, cool, could I spend $50,000 and own an NFT of Call of Duty? But in theory, sure. Maybe, but it doesn't do me any good. Back to Court's point, physical versus digital, in that case, it results the same. They could just shut the server down for that game and it doesn't work anymore, right. So I'm stuck with the paperweight.
Yeah.
So on the gaming front, I don't understand.
There's no weight to the NFT.
And even if it is an NFT in terms of like gear, it's still useless a year down the road, if that game shuts down, the platform's dead,
Right.
or the company is dead, or it's gone from Microsoft and now Sony has scooped them up, right? Or they sold assets to each other. What happens there? Like Court and I were talking last week about it a bit, and what happens, guys, if we are 10, 15 years down the road of the Bungie experiment, and let's just say there's an asset sale right now, and then Sony decides, yeah, we're not going to have Bungie anymore. We're going to sell the whole catalog off, and Microsoft decided to pick it up. So if you have NFTs and digital currency and assets all bundled in within Sony's platform and all of that for so long, Microsoft could turn around and just say, yeah, it doesn't work with us. Sorry, it doesn't work with our currency.
And I think at that point, that's when you look at NFTs within the gaming space and you just say inherently it does not work. At this current time and moment, it just does not work. Like there are so many barriers for there to be a tangible solution here. I fail to see how a studio can come forward and say, listen, your investment, because that's what NFTs are supposed to be, an investment, right? You're buying something that's supposed to go up in value, and then you're allowed to, trade it off for a profit. Your investment here in the gaming space just does not work. If I go out, going back to Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I buy a mask. Ghost Recon Breakpoint is a failing game. Let's be totally honest here. It's not growing in popularity. It has no value that's going to skyrocket. And what am I going to do with that mask? It's just going to sit there. It's going to deplete value. And then all of a sudden I'm out money. And then guess what? The next NFT that comes around within the gaming space, there's not a chance in hell I'm going to invest in it.
And every other company too, they're going to look at that and go, ooh, like let's just say it's Activision and Call of Duty tries that. And then everyone else watches and goes, that didn't work. Everyone soured on it. We're out. We're not going to even touch that because it's a horrible investment.
And a lot of these companies have to be careful because if they get in too deep and start offering these things, and it doesn't work out and they have to pull out, people are going to want their return on investment because they're going to invest a lot of money. Just like, it's really unfortunate, but I do think that, going back to Sean's point, I do want to kind of put a caveat on here. And I think that at some point NFTs are going to be here to stay. I think someone is going to come forward with something of value. It's not going to be in the gaming space. And it kind of goes back to the argument of VR, where everyone's like, okay, well, VR is going to do all this crazy stuff for the gaming industry. No, it's not. It's going to be it's going to be applied outside of gaming, concerts, venues, different forms of entertainment, in the hospitals. That's where VR is growing and thriving.
Okay, let's just be real. VR is going to be porn. Like you wanted to say it. Like it's
going to be.
It's already there.
Like, it's going to be like that's where it's going to go and be, and it's going to be that thing. But anyways, continue.
VR is so shackled within gaming, and likewise, I think that's the same thing that can be applied to NFTs. I mean, going back to just contracts, Sean, you were talking about contracts. I heard of a great example where if you sell your house, you can draft up an NFT contract that says every transaction on this property in perpetuity, the original person that signed the NFT gets 10%. Just for an example, and that lives on in perpetuity. That's a really cool thing for a digital asset, right? And I think that is the future of NFTs. Now, whether or not that's going to attract the common person, not the people who are investing millions of dollars for a Bored Ape NFT or anything like that. That remains to be seen. But I think that there are going to be really cool things that NFTs can provide. But that's also going to come at a risk of, the environmental thing. Are NFTs going to be able to pivot and be made in a way that, doesn't just nuke our entire planet? Because that's going to be a huge thing. I think at its core, NFTs are just going to be treated as like a beta run. And at some point they're going to have like the real launch, and they're going to be rebranded as not an NFT, but something else. And that's what things that our kids are going to grow up with. They're just going to be exchanging whatever they're going to end up calling it or whatever, but that's going to be their future.
Well, as we've learned, technology always advances, and we've always made, chips get smaller, technology gets better. They're going to make it so NFTs or even cryptocurrency, let's be real here, they're not going to be focusing on making NFTs better for the environment. They're going to be focusing on making cryptocurrency more so they can make more money off cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So
and put it into the metaverse.
Exactly. And if you look at NFTs, I see a perfect example would be like collecting comics or collecting cards, because then you could do variant comic covers and you could have Spider-Man having all these different things. and you could do an NFT after a comic book cover. But also everything is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. But that is an application that makes sense to me when it comes to NFTs because it's not an online asset. When we talk about video games, my biggest problem with the thing is everything about video games now is becoming online. So when those servers shut down, everything is gone.
And I could see it too, Court, of like being the additional piece within video games where we see, use the example, Bungie expanding and talking about, hey, in the next 10 years, this is what we envision. You can kind of see it where even with Halo, it's let's expand it to shows, movies. We are trying to build these things as gigantic brands that we can monetize over 15 years. That's the big strategy. Bigger strategy. I think you can incorporate very easily entities into that to say, here is a digital print Master Chief exclusive. We're doing one of like this variant, this one, and it's basically like your poster. And instead of selling the statues in the stores, here's your statue of Master Chief, and it's an NFT, and you could spend $5,000 to do that. And you could do that as a game company.
The collector's item pre-order of the game.
Yeah, it's the pre-order that becomes the pre-order bonus in an NFT version is it's all digitized. And but we're still so many years away from that.
Though. I think that's what I mean by like you can't just take like versions of what we have and make an NFT like iteration of it because people will suss that out, they will sniff it out, and they will scream about it. I'm not going to disagree with them on that. You can't say something that like should be in abundance, an infinite abundance that in the past everybody could get their hands on, and you say, well, suddenly there's 75 of these available.
True.
Like people are not going to like that. It's not necessarily maybe for the people who do get their hands on it, they're going to see value in it, they're going to be stoked that they got it, but everybody else like not even a little bit. We had a question recently on one of the shows about like, what if Xbox had the next version of achievements where like the first 1,000 people who got it, they're the only ones who could get it and everybody else was locked out.
Oh,
People who, which I think is cool. I think that incentivizes people to like jump in. And if you are one of those first 1,000 people to get it, then you're stoked. And if you are locked out, people do not like being locked out of stuff. Right. They don't like being told that you had a chance, but you missed it. And your reaction, Court, that off, think about that for like that was just for achievements. Now you're talking about something that I want to like buy, like that is digitized. I think that's not where they go. It has to be something that speaks to or adds value to your identity or your utility. That you can buy something that will add value to how you live your day to day. And I think that's where metaverse gets into. Or I could even see like a World of Warcraft account that you can sell. And to Steve's point, like maybe you get a cut of every time that something happens with that transaction. Like I think there's those types of versions where you are putting value, putting like sweat equity into some of these things, or maybe your NFT is your gamer tag. I think that kind of makes sense. But to like get a commodity, I think that's where I get a little sketchy on it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say this right now. If any company is going to figure out NFTs, it will be Nintendo.
I've said that about VR, actually. I think it not necessarily NFT. I think they'll figure out VR and make that mainstream.
They probably,
if anybody's going to do it.
Their next console is going to be something we don't see coming, that everybody thinks is not there. It's not going to work. Just like they made the PS Vita better than it was and brought out what the PS Vita wanted to be. And have the best selling console on the market, and it's not 4K. It's not like it doesn't have Dolby Vision. It doesn't have it doesn't have any of the bells and whistles. Number one selling console.
Or they tried to sell us cardboard.
Yeah,
they did sell us cardboard.
I mean, they did.
Did you buy it? Did you buy it?
I did not buy it, actually.
No.
They've even selling remote control Marios as a game, right?
Yep.
You can buy, and I've seen so many people buy that Mario Kart thing, and I'm like, Nintendo. They're really good at staying their family, but really good at bleeding families' money.
Yeah. I think that the environmental factor is undeniable. It can't be avoided. It has to be included in these types of conversations. But I also just am grateful that you guys are bringing this up, because I feel like if anybody even says the words or the letters, I guess, the NFTs, it's just like, it just creates this visceral response out of people. And I'm much more interested in like diving into that explosion a little bit and going like, what's causing this combustion? And I think there's something, at least something to learn and something interesting to be talked about with what the hell is this thing?
Well, Sean,
Yeah,
what,
like,
sure,
I'm not buying any. I just want to know more about
Me,
it.
me neither. That's the thing. It's like,
Right.
do we have to? But that's, and I feel like when jumping into a conversation like this, like people feel compelled to do exactly what you just did, which is like, disclaimer. I want to preface this. Like, I'm not advocating for this, whatever. It's like,
But I
is
also
it
read that Verge
hot
article.
a topic?
But it is. But I also like, well, look what happened to Troy Baker. He almost
Yeah.
like he literally
Yeah.
almost sewered his career. Like he almost pulled like a rock jumping into Joe Rogan
Right.
the other day. But like I read that Verge article and I read it, and then I honestly have to sit there and go, I feel like people are misunderstanding what everything about the NFT, and they're really jumping on this environmental thing and not doing enough research. Now, I am a big fan of finding out more information. I'm
Yes.
probably going to start Googling on YouTube and hopefully find a TED Talk on NFTs. They'll always have experts. TED Talks are amazing. That is one of those sources that I always will go to. And I always think I read the Verge article and then I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go look up a TED Talk after this conversation. And I'm going to want to hear more because I don't think they're as bad of the environment as everybody thinks. I think people just don't want them in video games because every time in a video game when they bring in something more gotcha stuff to take our money,
Yes.
we
Yes.
end up spending our money on it. Let's be honest, they get you every time.
Earlier this year, I made it a point to start listening to people talk about NFTs, watch videos and
too.
everything, because I last year, towards like November, December, I was 100% writing off NFTs. I was like, there's no way, like this is just, snake oil salesman
Yep.
tactics and all that and everything. And then I saw one, I think it was a TikTok or something. I can't even remember, but someone brought it up and they're like, NFTs right now, and the way that everyone's kind of reacting to them is the exact same way that our parents or most of our parents reacted to the internet, and how scary it was to put a credit card into the internet. And I was like,
Yep.
it makes complete sense. Like it's going to become so widely adopted at some point that our kids are just going to be like, well, yeah, of course the NFTs are, why were you even scared of NFTs and everything? Like, I just feel like, Cord, to your point, having that research will really kind of fluctuate and balance the conversation on NFTs. And no, I don't expect anyone to go out, look at an article, read or go to or listen to a TED Talk and come out of it and be like, I'm going to buy an NFT. But at least you have that kind of background knowledge to better educate yourself to be like, okay, this is what I want out of an NFT. I'm going to wait for that.
It seems the internet is easier to hate than
Big time.
educate. Like, let's look at it. Like, they just were like, nope, don't like that. Instead of educating themselves and finding out more information, like,
That's
it's
why
okay to ask questions.
That's why it's harder and harder, Court, where you make the point of, okay, I take the time. I think all of us do it more so now. Maybe it's an age thing, but we take a little bit more time when there's this new thing. And there's going to be a little bit of a gut reaction. I think everyone has a little bit of that, or it's going to be, okay, here's how I just instinctively feel or my position on something. But I think more of us try to, like Court's saying, all right, let me go figure this out for myself. Let me look at opposing views and perspectives. I want to hear what somebody who's like really good and educated on it has to say about it, and that not
We have
just
a
hear the
NFT
taglines.
designer in our chat.
Yeah, there you go. So it's understanding what's the value, what's their perspective on it. That's the healthy piece. But I don't know that everybody does, because we can look at any avenue when it comes to either politics or economics or social issues that are going on, and it's like, this thing is happening, and it's nope, don't like that. And you're like,
Well, yeah, like
but this is a good thing, or this is
Kevin
not.
in our chat right now just said it's bad for the environment right now. Yet I just read an article from The Verge that kind of counteracts that and kind of says, well, is it though? It's literally just taking off that thing that's already happening. Like cryptocurrency it's already happening.
Right.
You should be more, and yet no one's mad at cryptocurrency. They're Dogecoining it to the moon like it's nobody's business, right? We saw it all
Some
over.
people are mad about that too, but that's another element too. I think whether or not it's good or bad, that's one conversation that can be had. What drives me to learn about it is I think about generations beyond ours, a little like older than us, who are clueless about really critical and fundamental pieces of how we live in society right now. Like, how do I work a cell phone? How does the internet work? What's social? Like, social media is not just like cool, I have this account. Like, it's a central piece to how we live our lives. And like, I don't know about you, but if this is coming, good or bad, kind of want to know if this is going to be like, if this is going to drive a wedge between how I even understand how my kids are living on planet Earth, then I think that I'm compelled to learn what it's about at the very least. Because if that's going to be driving their experience here, I probably should know about that.
Because Sean,
we can't pick and
no, go ahead.
No, I don't even know what I was going to say anymore. So please go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sean.
No, it's okay.
You can't
still
pick.
thrown
You're
off by
going to
the
say
Diet
you're going to.
Coke.
You can't pick and choose.
Yeah, I just think like, especially when I think in my own household, because I can't fix the world. I can't change the world. It's too big. There's too much momentum. I can't stop a hurricane, all of these things. But what I can do is focus on what's going on in my household and the lives that are lived and the 4 people who live here. And in the next 20 years, 30 years, my kids are going to be, they're going to be grown adults with their own mindsets, and they're going to be interacting with all these different people and what the world is giving to them to interact with. And I feel like as people like us who are in touch with video games and the new and latest tech, like I think we're in a particular position to learn about this stuff and become familiar with it to a degree that like other people just aren't. Like people our age, as we are advancing and getting for our walkers, like that separation is going to become more and more distinct and profound. And we actually have a chance to go, well, we saw this coming and we could actually understand it. I actually think it's kind of like COVID-19. We knew about COVID-19 way before anybody else who wasn't into video games, because guess what? We are in touch with what's happening in the world from a global sense, where we saw this thing was like impacting E3 and PAX and all these other things that people were really worried about sending their people to. We knew that there was this thing coming. And I literally remember talking to people around me in my life going, have you heard about this COVID-19 thing? And they're like, yeah, just like wipe down your seats and make sure, like they had no clue. Right. And I think that we get this sense, because we're in touch with technology and stuff that's going on, that maybe there's something to this. So I kind of just refuse to close my mind to it as my daughter finally comes home. I'll be back.
I think. Oh God, he does that, and then it messes up. Now Steve is Sean.
Oh no, I'm Sean now.
Don't worry.
That's fine. We'll figure it out later. It's fine, Matt. Let it go. Let it go, Matt.
It's fine. Everything's good. Boom. Fixed.
So Matt.
Yes, sir.
What is your final thought? I'm going to ask final thoughts on NFTs.
I'm kind of with the group. I think it's a wait and see approach, that where we will be in 5 years is going to be drastically different. And I think that more on the tech side of things, or I use that as an example, when we look at how cell phones and we look at how our tech has evolved in the last 10 years alone and where we are today, and we are still scratching the surface on so many things. I think NFTs will evolve faster than anything that we are faced with, that we can't actually understand what it could look like or its value and how it will help people, businesses, whatever it will be. And I think it'll be very closely intertwined with cryptocurrency. And again, it's just so grassroots, the beginning of this little nugget of a thing that in a matter of years, in a shorter amount of time, when like our kids are teenagers, it will be normalized into something, and then it will evolve off of that. And I think a bigger thing is more so how cryptocurrency is going to kind of lead the charge within all of this. So I don't have a problem with it. I have more of an issue, or at least a mute button, to say, well, if you don't want to have the dialogue about understanding it, that's a bigger problem, I feel. If people are not having a willingness to say, well, what is it? And does it help me? Oh, is it a JPEG? Because I do that too, where I'm like, a digital baseball card.
Yeah.
Who cares? But that's such a narrow lens. And even in video games is a narrow lens, where I'm like, I don't see it right now how it works with gaming. I don't see it.
And as someone that sells plastic for a living, I'm the devil.
Monster.
Everything is bad for the environment. It's just about perception, and it's just about what you think is and isn't. If you only knew, I could go over the whole thing with the paper cups on how so bad they are for the environment, but everybody's like, plastic's bad, paper's okay. It's just all perception. And right now, the new hot button is saying that NFTs are bad. And you know what? They could be. but I need to know more. I'm not just going to going off the zeitgeist that's on and everybody yelling at everybody on Twitter saying how bad they are. I just want more information. Like I said, I don't own any. I haven't bought any. I'm not saying they're good. I'm not saying they're bad. I just want to know more. And I want to know everything that I can know before I make a decision. And right now, I couldn't make a decision.
Yeah. No, I think that's the most important part right now is that NFTs are so much in their infancy at this point that I think we all owe it to ourselves to at least try and do the research and then just, have that open discourse with each other and not be like, okay, well, I'm just going to plant my flag in the sand and say, no, NFTs are bad. It's garbage. It's killing the environment, which I mean, evidence shows it's bad.
They are. And they're killing the
destroying
environment.
the environment right now. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have the chance to grow into something that can actually benefit our lives. What that platform looks like remains to be seen. I have no idea. I'm a dumb person. I don't know what NFTs or what cryptocurrency will evolve. And I mean, Matt, to your point, like technology grows at a rapid rate. So we could have this conversation in a year from now, like to the day, and this conversation can go can swing to the totally other side. So right now, I think we're all in agreement that within the video game industry specifically, NFTs don't really have a place right now. I think that someone with a good mind, a good finger on the pulse of NFTs needs to come in and kind of massage that for us and kind of, ease us into it. But until that happens, I will continue to be adamantly against NFTs within the gaming space because I think that it's, again, the snake oil thing where I think a lot of these companies are just trying to latch onto a buzzword, make some easy cash, and then at some point get out of it because it's just not going to work until someone kind of strikes gold.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I feel like they're just trying to be first instead of, once again, even teaching themselves or knowing what they are. Look at Nintendo. Nintendo was like, yeah, we're in on it, and then had to like backtrack and was like, well, no, we're just in on the metaverse.
No.
And if that's part of the metaverse, then so be it. When even they don't know enough about it. And you even know Ubisoft doesn't know what they're just like, hey, can we make money off this thing, this NFT thing? Okay, let's do that. Like, and that's when it gets bad. And it gets to Kevin's point in the chat about greed. That's when it gets bad. When it's all about greed.
And that's inherently what NFTs are right now, is just about greed. You see it, I wish I could find the story that I saw, but like one NFT
Kev,
group.
that water ball that you use is still bad. Just as someone who sells them for a living, Kev, I'm sorry. They're bad.
One NFT group were selling a whole bunch of NFTs, kind of like the rip-off of a Bored Ape or whatever, made a whole, like millions and millions of dollars, and then they just disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's like that can easily happen. It's kind of like the Kickstarter syndrome where you don't really know what you're supporting, what you're buying into right now. So I would just, tread lightly, right?
Yeah, I'm not buying them. I'm also not buying cryptocurrency. Like I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
It's just not. And it's funny. You'll have so many people like NFTs are bad, but I've got Bitcoin and I got this. I'm like, we just read an article. I just read it. The cryptocurrency is worse.
They're hand in hand. I mean, those server farms, they're doing the exact same thing for both of them. So, yeah, I'm with you there.
Court, what's your next topic there, bud?
Wow.
NFTs are good. Not you're a good conversation point. They're not good. They're not
Jesus,
good.
can we quote that?
NFTs are good. That's a t-shirt.
So my next conversation I wanted to have is because everybody's been having, and we've seen Hoj, he's been on every show, the lawyer, talking about acquisitions. I don't want to talk about Activision Blizzard. I don't want to talk about Destiny. I don't want to talk about Bungie. I want to talk about two things that were said. Phil Spencer said something and Jim Ryan both said something, and they both said the same thing. They're not done.
I'm not done.
So we look at the landscape in the video games right now, and everybody's like, "Oh, we don't want this. We don't want this." Once again, people would rather throw stones instead of looking up things and saying, "I don't want Monopoly. I don't want Monopoly." First off, even Activision and Blizzard becoming part of Microsoft, by definition, is not a monopoly. And from what Hoj was saying on another show, it had nothing to do with the monopoly. It has more to do with other aspects of the whole thing. It's the definition of what they want to say is the monopoly. If you look at the grand scheme of gamings, it isn't. But if you look at the grand scheme of Microsoft as themselves as a company, it could be considered that because they're taking over. It's
Oh,
just depending on how they look at it and what lens they want to look at it. So that's why he said on just recently, I was watching on a podcast, he said 80-20 on Dustin Legary on the show. He said 80-20. He's given an 80-20. 80% he thinks it's going one way. It's going to go
that's
through, but there's a 20% chance it doesn't. And that's just based on how the FTC decides to define what Xbox is part of. Because if you
right.
look at Tencent and you look at PlayStation, you look at all that, if you look at the money, not look at the studios, look at the money, it's a totally different aspect. So I wanted to ask you guys, when both these people have said what they said, what do you think the future of acquisitions is going to be? Because it seems like video games are going the way of what Disney is doing, and they're buying up content. And everybody says, Facebook's got their metaverse, but the real thing that's happening is content. Everybody is buying content. Spotify is buying podcasts. Everybody is buying content. So what does the next 5 years look like in the video game industry? Are we just going to be two people with Nintendo doing their thing?
Maybe. It's a tough question to ask because it does seem like that's the way we're going. We're going into this media consolidation phase of this digital landscape. And right now, I mean, I would be compelled to agree with you and say, yeah, I think that Microsoft clearly has a lot of money that they're willing to spend. Whether or not, that money is going to be spent in a wise way remains to be seen. And I think that Sony is going to want to do their own thing. I don't think that they're going to go one to one and say, okay, you bought a big company, I'm going to buy a big company. I think they're going to kind of do their own things, kind of similar to what we saw with Bungie, whereas Sony is making smart decisions based on what their portfolio needs versus what Microsoft dictates that their portfolio needs. So I do think that as in the next 5 years, yeah, we could see that, but I also think that it's not inherently a bad thing when we see Microsoft go and purchase these other companies, because in a way, and I haven't really seen a big discussion occur like over this topic, but this is just going to give a better platform to indie titles and like the AA space, where all these indie developers are now going to be able to say, well, okay, well, if you don't want to have these, if you don't want to play games that are aligned with a single console, like a Microsoft exclusive or anything, well, we're multi-platform. We can be found anywhere. Why not play us? And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to kind of identify as in the next 5 years. But yeah, as for what it means for the AAA space, it's going to be very interesting because, yeah, clearly both of these companies are looking at where they can spend their money in very different ways. And yeah, Nintendo's just good at Nintendo. They've already talked about how they don't want to integrate other studios in and tamper with the Nintendo DNA, which I think is a very smart idea. They're set doing their own thing. They don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of different companies, bring them in. I don't know why you would as Nintendo, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Microsoft and Sony evolve over these next few years across this generation.
Matt?
I'm with Steve. I think it's gonna be very interesting to see how they evolve. I think one thing I'm looking at is that it is for me, it's a race for content acquisition for both of their catalogs. I think to Steve's point, I think Sony is trying to do a little bit more of their own thing. They don't have the dump truck of money that Microsoft does, so their acquisitions or moves need to be a little bit more strategic in that sense. And I don't think, as two big companies as they both are, I think it's narrow-minded a little bit for players and everyone in the public to just say like Steve's saying, like, oh, they bought a company, so you got to buy another company. I'm like, that's not how good business is done. Like, that's not how it really works, in my opinion. They're not looking at each other's shoulder every day going, you can do this. Oh, he did this. Okay, so we got to react and we got to do that. That's not a good idea. What I can also see happening is they turn around in a couple of years. Like we're very set on, I think a lot of people are very set on the idea that Xbox, whatever they gobble up, is going to turn into exclusives. And it's only going to be on Xbox when they're like, oh, it's on Game Pass. So it's really Game Pass is the conversation, Game Pass everywhere. And then people inevitably say, okay, what about Game Pass app on Sony? Possible. We could see that future. I also think that there's a possibility that because Microsoft is so giant, we have to take a step back. We are very much in the echo chamber of what we do, so we pay very high. We have hyper focus on these things. But the general public goes out and buys video game or downloads video game. I don't know if everything would always be exclusive to this ecosystem. 100% could be, but I could also see in a couple of years, even in 5 years, that they're like, well, on Xbox, they're like, this next game is going to be, maybe Ubisoft gets rolled under Xbox, and they're like, yeah, Assassin's Creed, you can get it on PlayStation. We're not going to hold it all under our roof because we want to generate more revenue. And if somebody only has a PlayStation, that's what they have access to, that's what they love, let them play it. $79.99 versus membership, but the player has the options: PC, PlayStation, Xbox. I can definitely see that and why cut out the revenue options if you are Xbox or vice versa, other than those big exclusives. But
well, if you look at the movie model, we have Disney Plus, we have all these movie channels, but you can still go on the Apple Store and buy a Disney movie. You can still go on Amazon and buy a Disney movie.
Exactly.
If you want to buy the thing, you have it. But if you want to just stream it or have the collection, or as my daughter says, have the one channel, that's what you do. Like, I've watched Encanto 18 times.
I'm on 3 right now, man.
If they were about to take that off Disney Plus, I'd be buying it right now.
Right.
Like, that's what the Disney could start doing with. Do you remember back in the day? Because I'm old and I know Sean's old, so he'll remember too. Is the Disney Vault?
Oh yeah,
They had the Disney Vault back in the day. So Disney could technically be like, we got this new vault where stuff is leaving Disney Plus, and if you want, you got a discount. And something Game Pass does. I just bought Control. I never played it. It was on Game Pass. Just didn't get around to it, and I was hoping that they would upgrade it to the better version. And then they said it was leaving Game Pass, and they put the ultimate version for $11, and I bought it. They got me.
Sure.
So, Sean, you missed the question. Our question is, all these, we're not talking about specifically the Activision Blizzard or the Bungie acquisition. We're talking about what Jim Ryan and Phil Spencer both said, that they're not done.
Yeah.
We look at the whole acquisition and people are talking about it, how right now, the only thing that could stumble on the Activision Blizzard, and this is from Hogue, the lawyer, he was explaining that if the FTC looks at Game Pass as a monopoly itself, and the fact that Call of Duty will now be on it, even if they let it go somewhere else, that's what could actually possibly destroy this deal, and it might not happen, because right now PlayStation doesn't have that. So Xbox technically, on the streaming services for video games, has a monopoly. Like 100%. They're the only ones in town. But
no.
well,
PlayStation Now, they just do it better. Like,
PlayStation Now is kind of, yeah, you're right. They do it
but
better. But no one,
isn't that an interesting, like, because you're right. And I think a lot of people look at it that way, that, yeah, that's the only game in town. But it's like, it's not even a little bit. There's EA's got one, Ubisoft has got one, now Xbox and PlayStation. Like, it's not even just Xbox and PlayStation. There's a lot here. But Xbox has done such a dominant job at it that is, I think that they've done that. They've achieved that. They're the Kleenex of game services, of game subscriptions.
So my question to you is, what do you see the future of gaming in 5 years? And is it okay that it
is
looks like,
inevitable.
but it does look like the new game in town isn't, hey, what game are you releasing on your platform? It's how many studios can you have in your portfolio? And what do you see in the future of gaming in the next 5 years?
Oddly enough, we're recording this, a day before Nintendo drops a direct, and just kind of gives us that nice, oddly refreshing, back in my day, video games were like this. And we're going to get a little bit of dose of that. Thank goodness. And isn't that amazing that this thing, the Nintendo Direct that we used to make fun of, like, why don't they show up with a stage presence? And why are they doing these cheap YouTube videos to tell us about their news? And now here we are looking forward to this as if it's the most refreshing thing coming into video games. I think this is a point I heard on a podcast that I might kind of paraphrase and maybe take into a different way, is that Nintendo came out to say, like, they're not playing this game at all. They're not acquiring studios, and they believe in the culture of video games. And that was probably the best version of this argument of who's doing it the right way or the wrong way. Is it Xbox or is it PlayStation? And PlayStation does it the right way because it's more organic and it feels good and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't disagree with that, but I also don't think that, like, there's really a whole lot more to it than just that. It feels good because these are studios studios that they've cultivated and worked with for a long time. That seems like it feels nice, and it doesn't seem quite as aggressive as I'm going to go buy this company and now you're in my back pocket. I agree that one seems more natural than the other. But from a business standpoint, when I hear someone like Furukawa from Nintendo say, we believe that culture matters, and we believe that that homegrown nature actually builds into the culture of the games, the spirit of the games, and that they're fun, then it starts to click for me a little bit. And that's probably, it was really just within the last couple of days, because in the past I've been like, go ahead, Xbox. You seem to have your finger on the pulse. Go buy everybody. You haven't destroyed a studio in a little while. So yeah, keep going with this. That seems all right. Until I saw this
Lionhead over there
notion.
cowering in the corner.
Well, and obviously, and that's a great example of what not to do. And I think that they've learned from that. But it wasn't until I kind of considered this, what are the benefits to a video game itself? And I think like it's hard to argue with Nintendo's model on that front. That when they release a game that seems like they are really, really focused on quality, the experience, the gameplay, they don't seem distracted with whatever distractions acquisitions must bring, whatever distractions, all these other things that are layered on top of video games. For better or for worse, Nintendo has maintained consistent. Now, it also means that they're not like advancing either. Like it's the good and the bad with Nintendo. That the games are the same all the time, and Splatoon doesn't really seem to match up with a lot of the quality of life stuff that you'd expect out of a multiplayer game. Why am I playing the same map over and over again? This lobby system seems weird, and the friend system doesn't really work. But there's a quality there. So I don't think that there's a right answer here. I don't think that one is objectively better or worse, because I think there's pros and cons to both. I think it's exciting to see, and as somebody who enjoys Xbox, I do like to see that they've got a little fight in them and that they're not like rolling over. Given the alternative, I would have liked to see them do exactly what Sony did over the last 20 years and go like, who's this Naughty Dog? They seem to do something cool over here. And holy crap, it's Uncharted. Yeah. Like that's very exciting to watch. It's very gratifying to see a very talented studio come and like show you what they're made of. And I think that that's a legacy that Xbox is just going to be missing out on altogether. You're not really gonna, maybe it's like a compulsion, like maybe Double Fine, but it's weird to think about Double Fine like coming of age. Like,
well, we might
been around, you know.
We're about to see what Wii Playground can do, right? Even though Forza is unbelievable, but they're about to do, hey, we used to make a race car game. We're about to give you a open world RPG fantasy game.
Playground is the closest thing to a Sony studio that Xbox has. Is like they've kind of had like a second party relationship. They ended up buying them. Like that's as close to the Sony model as Xbox have. I
Theoretically, yeah. I think one important point here is that we've gotten into such a loop of seeing. I mean, we're creating content for a Xbox focus show, so I think this is an important point. We've gotten so accustomed to it being exciting when we see, Microsoft's purchased Bethesda, Microsoft has purchased Activision Blizzard. Like that's really cool for the Xbox ecosystem and everything. But we have still yet to see Microsoft prove themselves to be able to handle these acquisitions, handle this amount of new talent. And Sean, to your point, bring them into the Microsoft culture. We've seen what happens with Lionhead. That was one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen. Looking back,
I love Fable. Like
me too.
And
to see them muck that up to that degree was it was just so disheartening for me. So I really do worry whether or not we're going to reach a point where Microsoft has kind of been more than they can chew, and Phil Spencer's going to be sitting there like, so what do we do now? Is compulsion just getting the axe because one or two of their games didn't pan out because we didn't have enough resources from the top to look over them and kind of support them in the system? And I think that is really scary. As Microsoft is building this portfolio, and it's like we still don't know whether or not you can pull this off.
Yeah,
and I think we're not going to know that until what?
Redfall. No, I think Redfall is that's your first litmus test.
Starfield.
Right? Well, Starfield was already in development, and so that was already Todd Howard's baby. I think Starfield is, and I literally just did a video, and it'll come out tomorrow. That Starfield could sink or swim for Game Pass. It's so big for Game Pass, it's not even funny. Like Starfield is going to be the most important thing, and Phil Spencer has said it now. But Jeff Grubb made a comment on XEP a couple weeks ago. He made a comment, and him and Luke were just talking, and in passing, Jeff Grubb's like, "Hey, yeah, Starfield's going to be very important for Game Pass." And then he continues, and I just sat there and I got stuck on it. I like DM Luke, and I'm like, do you hear what he just said? Like Jeff Grubb doesn't say things there's always a purpose to what he said, and I'm sure he's heard that Xbox is counting so much on Starfield. But I think that they're also counting on games like they are so lucky that a game did so well on play. They got Ghostwire Tokyo, Deathloop just did well. So those are two games. But then you have Redfall, which is going to be the first exclusive. It's going to be your games of service. It's going to be that game where they're really going to be counting on to do very well. And it could falter. And then you have Wii Playground Games next year, or hopefully next year, let's be honest, hopefully, that we get Fable. Yeah. And that's the other big test. Starfield is made by Todd Howard. I truly, and this sounds I truly believe the game's going to be good. I haven't seen anything from it, but he's like Naughty Dog. Like you mentioned Naughty Dog earlier. Naughty Dog will bring out a game and I'm like, I'm going to like it before I even play it. Right. Because they're Naughty Dog.
Phil Spencer was on an interview, and it was just reported all day earlier today. Phil Spencer wants Starfield to be the most played game ever. Wow. So to your point, like it's not even just being alluded to. He's being very explicit that this is an absolutely massive game. And that's the one thing, I try to explore a little bit too with these acquisitions. It's like, sure, Microsoft is this treasure chest of dollars and, $70 billion here, and there's sure more to come. This is not a guarantee. And like this notion that is the case, I think is we got to give these guys credit and everybody involved, I think, for having the guts to make this kind of move. Like, I don't know about you, but I make like far less consequential decisions at work and I lose sleep over that. Imagine going to somebody else and selling this notion of $70 billion. And I hope this works out. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? There's nothing guaranteed about it. There's a lot that can really go wrong. And it might happen to do with like the fate of video games itself. Sure. Like when you're talking about this, we've all kind of went into, well, obviously it's going to be successful and obviously they're going to just bury everybody else who even tries to compete with them. It's like, that's not necessarily a guarantee at all. And they are really, this is fear mongering at its best. What if Microsoft screws it up and like then Call of Duty is gone and StarCraft is gone and Warcraft is gone? Like that is terrible. So they really have they are
Don't you do that,
purchasing. Sean. Well, what I'm trying to say is that they're purchasing a lot of responsibility. This is a Spider-Man moment. A lot of power, a lot of responsibility, you guys.
Well, I'm a huge Ubisoft fan and everybody, it's almost like everybody can see the trajectory in the path. They're already saying Sony's going to go out buy another Japanese studio. Like that's what's about to happen. They're going to get From Software because this is going to be the game. They're just going to go out and buy. And they pretty much the articles are already out there from the Jeff Grubbs of the world saying like Microsoft isn't buying a Japanese studio. People just get over that. Like that isn't happening. The culture wise, just that won't happen. But Microsoft could definitely go buy a Ubisoft or Take-Two. I think would be. Almost if they get Grand Theft Auto, there's your wave the white flag. There's your monopoly because then they have the Call of Duty but if they go get a Ubisoft, I get scared of. First off, I get happy of. Please go change the culture because that was the one thing I saw great about the acquisition. You had all these people that work for Activision Blizzard out there on Twitter happy, and they haven't been happy in years. That made me happy. But then you have same thing with Ubisoft. But I get scared. Do they look at Ubisoft and they change the way they make games? I like the fetch quest. I like just going to do these things. I don't want games of service. So, Matt, you haven't said much. What is your thought on this?
I just like listening to you guys because you're way smarter than me. I think I'm always kind of looking down and being like, where is it in 10 years? How does it shake out? And I think, Steve, your point was earlier that I agree with either you or Sean, probably both of you, but just how what if like the studio fails and like Court's talking about it too? Like what if they gobbled up a bunch of them and then a branch of this division didn't work? There's so many games that would be theoretically all on Game Pass. That's a lot of content, just content, period. I really would worry that for people that, on one hand, the optimistic side is, great, studios have an opportunity to really flourish, showcase their design, their work, their art, and and get more exposure. And Steve, to your point, to be able to have indie titles, AA titles actually get some exposure and become bangers and hits and crush it, right? But I think there's also the side that has me worried of, well, there's so much. What if Redfall doesn't hit they wanted to hit? What if Phil Spencer is wrong and Starfield is not what they wanted it to be or projected it to be, and it's a one-hit wonder of players came in and they gobbled it up, gone. And I worry about that from a content perspective and what we have seen within streaming. We love shows and series on Netflix, and we all have our favorites, and we gobble them up, and then we're done in a week because we binged it. And I loved it. I had my time with it. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But we're done here. Where's the next thing? And I would.
But where do you go? So I want to jump on that, Matt.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important notion that, like, with the output increasing to the degree that it is, and kind of following that Netflix model, when there's something new and it's zeitgeisty and it's capturing a lot of attention, it brings people in. And when you say, yeah, they gobble that thing up and then they go on to the next thing, at least they're still in Netflix.
True.
And
They're still in the ecosystem, and that's what they care about.
Yeah,
Metaverse,
and so there's.
Sean, like I'm with you. It's like, but you're in the ecosystem and you subscribed and you were there. So you want to play Starfield and gobble it up in 10 days and then just move on to something else within Game Pass.
Then go to Halo, then go to Forza, then go to Call of Duty.
You're all in here. It's all good. I worry, though, from a studio perspective, that they don't get the traction on stuff that maybe they're hoping for. And then as a result, we don't get that game, that series, that show, a season 2, where we have our favorites that are like, we got a 1 season of this. We loved it. Where'd it go? It didn't make the money we wanted it to. So see ya.
Well, you see that with Netflix, there's a one-to-one parallel right there, where Netflix's bar is set so high now that if a show comes out and it's like, well, it's underperforming, let's give it 3 seasons and then cut it. And that could be a reality.
That's my worry. That is a worry I have of, like, it's all in here. And I mean, that's just video games, right? Stuff goes well, stuff doesn't. But I worry about, we grab it all at Microsoft, and then stuff doesn't hit the way people hope or they hope or the studio. So, I mean, and that's part of business. You're going to have stuff that is not going to land. But I do worry about that. If you just compare them one-to-one, I know it's all different, but
of course,
you just worry that you get, like you're saying, Steve, 3 seasons. And you're like, but there's a huge audience that loves that. You're like, sorry, it didn't hit the next level that we needed it to, because we were looking at Starfield and Call of Duty, and it's got to do. But I think also Xbox, I'll say my last thing is that, but I know that Microsoft really does blanket across and say, like, we have something for everybody. You want your AAA blockbuster? Here's your Call of Duty, potentially maybe a Grand Theft Auto down the road. And here's your AA experience. Here's your indie experience. And there's a little bit for everybody. Yeah.
Let's be honest. Most TV shows are like too many seasons.
100%. 100%.
I think that's the thing. But I'm glad you brought this point back up, Matt, because I feel like I was kind of being a little doomsday-y as well. But we can't really compare the old kind of landscape of studios to what is happening now, because you did look at a single studio and go, like, you better do what you said you're going to do. You better bring in the cash, because this entire outfit really relies on this year's game. What Microsoft is doing is diversifying their portfolio so they can afford to have a couple of these things not hit. So they're building in some safety on that front, that you have somebody like, if you have like Bethesda and you really need Starfield to really do its thing, but it doesn't quite hit. It's like there's nothing else on the horizon for another 5-6 years until Elder Scrolls comes out. Like those other games aren't really going to quite cut it. So there's that. That's number one. Number two is that the recurring revenue model of Game Pass also helps to survive some of these dips and falls. You just have revenue coming in all the time. You're not looking for this giant spike that doesn't happen. So it's actually flatlined 2 major risk mitigations on a studio. So
yeah, that's fair.
Well, I also worry about the release dates. Like Steve,
that's where I'm at. Yeah,
right now you're just literally, you can't have, like, I have you online as a friend on Xbox, but I'll never be able to see what you're playing because you review too many games, so you just have it offline. Like, it just, you can't see what Steve's playing.
Show me your stuff, Steve.
Yeah, because he's just reviewing so much. So, like, how did they do the marketing beats? How do they let everybody, like...
Well, that's a good point.
We haven't seen gameplay from Starfield, and we haven't seen gameplay from Redfall, but supposedly they're coming out this year? Crossfire X comes out on Friday. Matt and I talked about it. I did a video on it today. That'll be out tomorrow first thing in the morning. I had to Google and find out everything to know about this game because there was nothing. This game
might be on purpose. That might be a red flag, Court. That might be a thing.
It's a Remedy game, so I'm trying to be more optimistic about this, Sean, and not Doomsday, but
I'm with you.
It's a multiplayer game. I think that's where its niche is, but if I've learned anything about Game Pass lately, multiplayer games are very good for a week. And then everybody stops. Even look at Halo. We talked about it. Halo, people aren't playing it.
People are playing Halo. Don't do that. People are playing lots of Halo.
Hold on. You're right. But are they playing it as much as when it first came out? Did they stick? I don't know if that's ever I only play with you. Yes, but Microsoft thought this game was going to be a lot bigger than it was. And you're still getting the complaints. You're still seeing the complaints about the
biggest game. Stop it. You're just regurgitating. It was the biggest launch. It's got more players than any other 100%. Halo game ever.
But just recently it stopped. Just recently those players started going away. I know. Hey, I still like the game. I'm just saying if you're looking, look at Amazon right now, had 2 of the biggest games and no one even talks about them.
Sure.
They do.
That's fair.
I think it speaks more to the representation about what we're doing, the content creators, what we're playing versus what everybody. When you talk about everybody, it's like I don't play World of Warcraft. I don't play Final Fantasy 14. I don't play it's so funny. Even Ryan Turford made this comment when he's talking about Final Fantasy 14. He's like, I almost wish it was a different model so other people, more people could play it. I'm like, yeah, that's what's really holding Final Fantasy 14 back is its low player count. No, these games are enormous. League of Legends, none of us played, none of us are talking about it. And if you just listen to podcasts, you think that nobody played it. I just think that there's more to it than that.
One point I want to bring up, and we're kind of, talking about what Microsoft's doing and how they're handling all these acquisitions. And I want to kind of pivot and look at what Sony's doing, because I think that they are doing a very interesting counter measure, we can call it that, or really mitigating a lot of the risks that we're kind of talking about with, Microsoft taking all this responsibility. Aside from Bungie, this past year, Sony has just been partnering with studios, kind of making these second party partnerships. You got Haven Studio, you got Firewalk Studio, and there was a whole bunch more. I think 2 or 3 other ones. And I think that's a really neat way to kind of go into this new landscape of acquisitions and everything is you're still getting the content, but you don't have that much risk in taking on all this new talent. If Haven comes out and their game doesn't really sell well, Sony got what they needed. They got the money, they got their cut of revenue or whatever their deal is and everything. But then they don't have to really worry about all those jobs, keeping the studio afloat, and funding the next project. So it's a very interesting, dynamic between what Microsoft's doing and what Sony's doing.
And Steve, if they are very successful, from doing the partnership approach, that might be a studio where they say, we do want to bring you in-house and make you a Sony exclusive because we can see the next 3 to 5 games and voila, maybe you have a new Uncharted in terms of just its scale and its expansion. I'm with you. I like the partner model from Sony's perspective to say it's a little bit safer. And I mitigate my risk. And I'm like, if it doesn't work out, or we really thought Haven was going to be this huge seller and it's not, well, okay.
Look at Death Stranding, where they latched on to Kojima right when he left Konami, and they're like, make the weirdest game you can ever make, and we'll support you and everything. Did it pan out to the extent or to set the bar that was so high that they expected? Probably not, but at the same time, that mitigated so much risk. Instead of bringing Kojima on and his studio on as a first party studio, they can choose whether or not to support and fund a second game or a second project, or just kind of,
and when you have,
let him do his own thing.
When you have Sony that, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, they very much like to look at, they very much are still in the game of console sales, the actual physical, they want the hardware sold. I think doing the partnership approach also helps them by having that PlayStation logo show up at the next Kojima game at the beginning. And it's that, Sean, to pull it back to say a greater audience, a greater scale, they see a splash ad with a Kojima game and it has PlayStation on it. It's the association of just, this game is on PlayStation. May very well may not be, right? It's just that it's here first. Or it's Call of Duty is associated with Sony, playing it on the PlayStation. more so than Xbox when we're going, but millions of people play it on Xbox. So I think the partnership approach is also a good one because from Sony's side, good marketing. Because I can get there first. You may be on something else, but at least I can get that mind share, and hopefully I can get people to buy the box.
But oddly enough, when Xbox did it first with the second iteration of Tomb Raider, the gaming world lost their frickin' minds.
True.
When Xbox decided to do a console exclusive at the time, people lost their minds. I literally just read a whole article about it and did a video on it, and I was laughing how the perception has shifted. At the time when that happened, Xbox was the worst people in the world. Now that it's become common practice, you just finished making a point on how smart it is.
I don't think Xbox could even now, and I think there's other examples of this too, Court, that I don't think it will ever be okay. It was within the same kind of time period, same era that Street Fighter was an exclusive over in PlayStation Land. It just seems to be a little bit more accepted, and I've kind of stopped fighting about that because it's just, that's the way of the world. I think Sony has always had a bit of a opportunity to play position plays on the entire industry. And what I would love to see them do actually is kind of act upon that, where Xbox is really still fueling up. They're still gassing up a little bit here. They're gathering resources. They're getting everybody into the works here. And really, if PlayStation wanted to, they could flip a switch and go, guess what? Yeah, you've already accepted over the last year that our first-party games are going to be $70, or there's a $15 a month Game Pass, like there's Spartacus. And I feel like if they were to do that, then in a lot of ways, their version of Game Pass, the new PlayStation Now, could match or even exceed Game Pass because they have The Last of Us, because they have God of War, because they have Horizon. Like, let's say they do it right now, the moment where they flip the switch to say day one, day and date, our first party stuff is coming to our service, it's way better than day one that Xbox did it, where they were like, in the future, this is really going to matter too. And maybe Gears 5 might have been it, maybe Forza Horizon 5, maybe even Halo, but even that's complicated because only half of it was free. The other half was, of course, on Game Pass. I think that if they wanted to, they could flip a switch and go, holy crap, oh, I forgot. We've been all pooping on PlayStation. Like, what are you guys doing? It's like, they're the biggest transacting video game company on the planet. You know, like, they're just enormous. I really think that a lot of this acquisition chat, it's great for Xbox. They're dominating the conversation. But the value and the video games and the properties that are in Sony land are undeniable. And people should really remember that. If they want to, they could flip the script way quicker. They don't need to go acquire a whole bunch of stuff to make their Game Pass version that much better. They've just decided that backwards compatibility isn't really a thing that they care about, and day and date. Those two things they could easily, it's their own thing. It's not anybody else's responsibility or choice than theirs. And if they reverse those decisions, then it's a completely different game. It's super interesting, I think.
My three favorite games in the last 10 years are The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, and God of War. And like Last of Us 1, I haven't played it since my daughter was born, and I don't think I can. Because I don't think I can do that. Spoiler alert, I can't do the beginning. Like, there's just no way I can get through that. And I remember playing it and my father-in-law watching me play that. And that was the first game that emotionally got me into a game. Playing Uncharted made me feel like I was Indiana Jones. Like, let's just be real. It's fun. But playing The Last of Us, I was like, wow. Like, I finished that game 7 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost platinumed that game. That game's a very hard game, the platinum. Yeah. And I loved the living daylight. God of War, loved. Ghost of Tsushima was the Assassin's Creed game I've always wanted. Let's be real. That's what it is. But it was so good. Like, so good. Like, the game was amazing.
My son is Link. My daughter is Ellie. I do not have a child named Forza Car. You know, I don't have a kid
why
named...
not?
Not yet. Next one. But, you know, you talk your wife into pushing that thing out. Oh, crap.
Giant Mustang coming right out of there. Yeah, out of the garage. No, Sean, you made a really good point though of just having Xbox had the approach with Game Pass. Like, I'm with you. If Sony turned around tomorrow and said, "Hey, here's day and date and every major title we've ever done," boom, there you go, mic drop. I would sit there and be like, "Yeah, I'm in. What do you want? You want $100-$200 a year? Great, done. I don't have to think about any of it, and you streamlined it. Fantastic." Xbox's approach when they released Game Pass, it came out, it was this hang out, just hang with us because we're going to get there. And we watched the growing pains and still are. Watch the growing pains of here's 100 titles. I remember getting Game Pass like when it came out. I'm like, I'm going to try this, and I turned it on, and I'm like, Gears was there, and then I look and I started doing it. I download, and I went, I'm really not like. There's 2 games in there, and then they had Master Chief Collection. And I kind of went, okay, so is that it? Like.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. That was an interesting time because the early adopters were Xbox lifers. They were people who were already in, and you had those games already. You actually the people who bought into Game Pass first were the last people who needed it. It's so funny,
and that was so much of the conversation, right? Of just like I remember reviews and watching stuff of just being like, it has the potential. But unfortunately, there's nothing new that's really going to strike players because we have these games, we've played them, we're kind of done. And I think Xbox has had to take this time to really cultivate that community back to say, hey,
with quality games, by the way.
But I think
like when they turn on the Switch for day and date, it was like they were having trouble selling games.
Yeah.
PlayStation has no problem selling games. And I really think it'd be interesting to light both fires at the same time. The people who want nothing to do with a subscription service will continue to buy games at $70, but then there's a whole bunch of people who will like, yes, please. Like I think they'll take advantage of both. The MLB situation, I think, has really accelerated this, to be honest.
That's a good point.
They've gotten it. This notion. Gosh, we're demystifying, I think, a lot, myth busting a lot of things here. People think that when a game comes on Game Pass that nobody buys the game, and that is ridiculous. The people who are on Game Pass will probably get it. There's even evidence to suggest that people who have Game Pass will still buy the game, by the way. But there are 25 million people who have Game Pass, and a tremendous number of people who still buy the game as they would have 10 years ago, man.
Look at Halo Infinite. The amount of people that bought the Steelbook.
Yep.
And they already had the game on Game Pass. The Steelbook didn't even come with a game.
No.
Yeah, people just bought the Steelbook.
Yeah.
There's this like zero-sum game that people keep playing, and it makes absolutely no sense. This 100% cannibalization. It's like we've been around the block a couple of times now, and I actually can't believe that narrative is still as strong as it is because it doesn't make any sense. And I think Sony knows it, and that's why I'm expecting to see them come really strong with a really great offering with a month-to-month thing, and I will be in on it, man. Like I will absolutely buy.
Oh,
and same thing with like
value.
Dude,
I'm in.
Totally. And it makes sense, I think, at the platform level for Xbox and PlayStation, and I would hope for Nintendo to have this as well. I have a little bit more trouble with like an EA platform or a Ubisoft platform, like just a little bit more. Yeah. I'm not quite there, but it's mostly a pricing thing.
And Sean,
because they're really not that far off.
I could do the same thing where you're saying like you're gonna have people that are gonna get into the Sony subscription model for day and date, if that's it. And there's going to be those that are just gonna be like, I'm fine. I'm going to pay my $70 for that game. For me, I'm probably that person until the library or the incentive is big enough. If Sony comes out and says, we have a very large price tag for Spartacus, whatever they want to do per month annually, but let's just say it's on the high end because it's Sony. Because they're going to justify being like, I'm giving you these amazing blockbuster experiences. Like, this is why you're paying for it. I would turn around and say, well, I only really buy a handful. I have a digital PlayStation 5. I only buy digital, and I only buy a handful of first-party experiences every year from your platform. The Uncharted, Spider-Man, Wolverine that will come out. That's kind of it. Like, I play that. I'll play God of War, and like those are the main titles. So I may sit there and go, I don't really need your subscription service. I have no interest in the rest of your catalog right now. So yeah, I'm just saying like I could be on both sides where I'm like, but if that gets big enough and the train starts rolling and you're like, there's God of War 2, we have Horizon, you have Spider-Man 2, Miles Morales 2, you have Wolverine. That's what
I'm saying, man.
And then I go,
they don't have to buy
this thing
studios
is
to
getting big.
Do that.
Yeah.
No. They've already got the content, and that's what Microsoft is building up for. So, I mean, they're coming at it from two opposite ends of the spectrum. And
that's why they're buying Activision.
Absolutely. And that's why Sony bought Bungie, because they looked at their portfolio and they're like, we don't have a first-person shooter game. We don't have a games as a service title. We just buy this game that does both, or buy the studio that knows how to do both of them.
Yeah.
And it just fills that one little pocket that Sony just does not have, versus Microsoft, where they're like, oh, all the holes in our pockets, it's all games. So what do? We just buy all these studios because we got to plug these real fast to just build up Xbox Game Pass. So it's interesting, but yeah, in the next 5 years, I think they're both on track to kind of, wow players. It's just how they're going to do it. I'm still.
That's really well said. They totally are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Metaverse.
NFTs.
feel like metaverse only gives me a like throw up in my mouth reaction
Right?
just because it's connected to
Dry
Mark
mouth and just
Zuckerberg.
kind of
Like that's yeah, just
Right.
hairball kind of thing. It's just a Zuckerberg. That's like honestly like strap a thing to my face and like let me exist in a fantasy world. That sounds awesome. Just like it's a robot making
without
it up.
being in Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
Sorry, Meta. But
Meta.
this is a phenomenal conversation, and I appreciate both of you spending your evening with us. But I do feel that we 100% could continue this conversation for hours upon
Oh, for
hours
sure.
and give Iron Lords podcast a run for their money. But
Please no.
Oh,
yeah,
please.
it's not going to happen.
I have children, Court.
I looked at the time. I'm like, so it's way past my bedtime. But I really appreciate everybody for coming, and we should do
thanks,
this again
guys.
sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. And Sean, it was great to see you again.
Same time next week. Thank you guys for being same to you, man. Look at you. Look at like high five,
Hey.
everybody. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for being patient
hey.
with my in and outs.
Hey, you do what you got to do. You're a parent. We understand. And think about this. The next time there's that thing in Canada with the Comic-Con and the stuff.
Yes.
We can
I
all see
saw
each other.
I saw two of you the last time something happened.
Yeah, he thought
Yep.
Matt was going to be there, but
I don't go outside, but I'll go outside for you, Sean. It's Steve.
I missed
I'll
Steve
go.
by 5 minutes. By 5
Yeah,
minutes.
That's terrible.
That was a shame.
It is what it is.
We'll get
This year though.
This year.
We'll be there. We'll
Get the
be there. all of
snowplows
us.
out.
I'll
We'll be good
even
to
get a
go.
hotel room and stay downtown.
Again is Mr. Blau.
Whiskeys.
Whiskeys. I don't
Whiskeys.
drink whiskey. You don't need that from me.
You can have a cup of tea. I don't care. You just show up, old man.
I'll be there.
Buckley's.
Bring your Buckleys and your back pain, and let's
Yeah.
go.
If Sean's there, we'll just have to wear a hazmat suit. But
That's perfect.
What did I do? Oh yeah, I always get sick.
What
That's
did I
true.
do? Oh yeah, that's right.
oh yeah, I was like dying. Yes.
Guys, again, yeah, thank you very, very much for giving up all your time and hanging out, because I really, really enjoy this. I could honestly just sit and turn my camera off and just listen to you guys talk about video games. It's awesome. So thanks again.